Hello, everybody that's joining. Say hello. How you doing? Where are you tuning in from? Let me know how you are. How are you guys? Lovely to see so many of you joining already. And just pop in the chat. How are you? How's your week been? It's Friday. Have you had a good week, a challenging week, easy week, exhausting week, uplifting week? Pop in the chat where you're tuning in from and how your week has been. Just let me know. How's your week gone? My week has been, I describe it as intense, challenging, uplifting, a bit of everything. I think my week's been this week. A little bit of everything. How's yours been? Mixed, fast, productive, quieter than usual. That sounds good. Challenging. One step forward, several weeks back. I get that feeling. I think that a lot of us can identify with that. A little bit less hectic than last week. That's good. Okay, real mix of weeks. Real mix in terms of how we've all been feeling about our week. Sleep deprived due to your toddler. Okay. Sleep deprivation is so tough to cope with. Intense. Fantastic. So for those of you that are joining, we're just sharing how our week has been. And it's lovely to connect with you all. I'm really looking forward to sharing, I hope, some really useful tools to help silence that inner saboteur, or just to really dial down its power over our lives. And I'm excited to share with you some of the excerpts from workshops that I've been delivering on this topic. And I've been really fortunate to be booked for workshops on this topic over International Women's Day and month, and then admin professionals week and month over March and April. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of what I know to work incredibly well when it comes to managing that inner saboteur. And I think it is time to get going. I know a lot of you on this call, and I'm really loving the fact that a lot of you are coming back to these webinars time and time again. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I have over 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, so it means we can just follow each other. But if Pip is going to be kind enough to pop my LinkedIn, thank you so much. She's already done it. Is come and connect with me. Follow me, I'll follow you back. And it's really lovely to have that extra layer of connection. And it's probably where I share an awful lot of news and tools and things that I've got going on at the moment. So who am I? Who am I? Let me kick off with an introduction to me and why I am here speaking to you today. So I'm the very, very, very proud founder of C&C Search and C&C Development and Training Academy. And we were actually founded 10 years ago this year. It feels like an enormous moment. And I know that Jodie, that joined 10 years ago, 6 months after I started, is feeling very reflective too. It's a big deal. It's a huge deal to be a decade into founding a business. And as they call it, they call it being a bootstrap business. It's when you haven't had external investment. So it's a big moment of celebration. And I'm lovely to be able to share that with you. Hi, Anna. Oh my goodness, it's been about 6 years since I've seen you. Hello. And I've used my platform over the last few years alongside continuous personal development, and I've gained 6 coaching qualifications, and using that platform to help instill the belief in your infinite potential and how to unleash that has been part of my absolute mission over the last few years. And it's been incredible to be able to deliver that into all sorts of clients and organizations. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll notice that I've had a glorious moment of celebration today, which is to become one of the United Nations Women's Delegates for 2024, which, yeah, feels huge. And I I'm so grateful to the team that I work with at C&C for all of their support and what that means. Thanks, Louise. Hello. So we're also taking bookings at the moment. Over the next couple of months. I think most of March is gone. I think we've got about 3 slots left in March and a few in April, and would be delighted to come into your organisation and share some of these tools with you, of course. Okay, so things I need to share with you before we get into really unpicking your self-sabotage and how I can help you to silence that inner saboteur, and how I can help you to create tools and systems that are going to help support you with realizing that full potential, which is what happens when we're able to release self-sabotage and reach into our fullest potential. But this session is being recorded, and all I ever ask is that we don't give each other advice on this session, that we keep open-minded, but that I welcome all of you to share challenges, observations, tools that have really supported you, and to keep an open mind. My skills are as a coach, and that's where all of my different qualifications are. I'm not a therapist, so if at any stage during this conversation today about self-sabotage, you don't feel great, or you're feeling triggered, or you need to take a step away, I urge you to do that. Look after yourselves, and if for whatever reason the content doesn't feel like it's for you today, that's absolutely fine. And if you want to reach out afterwards, then again, please let me know if there's resources you'd like, or book recommendations or podcasts. Perhaps we'll share a few. And I'd love for you all to grab pen and paper. So if you have a chance to grab pen and paper, I want to make this session as if you and I are in a coaching session together. And you would be amazed. So I often will coach or provide training for board level individuals, as well as more broadly in organizations. And self-sabotage is something that comes up time and time and time again as such a limiting factor in being happy, fulfilled, successful, whatever that means to you. And self-sabotage is sneaky. It's confusing. It's often a mix of conscious and unconscious. I wonder for you if you are aware of where you are self-sabotaging and what impact that's having on your life. I know for me, my self-sabotage has looked like lots of different things in lots of different ways over my life, but it's often really got in the way of me being visible, or me feeling healthy, or me feeling a lovely sense of deep self-esteem. And I've used all sorts of different tools to self-sabotage with over the years. And so I feel very well equipped to share what might work with you. But I want to first of all explore what it is. And essentially, self-sabotage is any behavior that we repeat that goes against ourselves, that means that we're not on our own side. And actually, it comes from the brain's way to try and look after us, to self-preserve, but it doesn't work. And that's because our brain loves to make things easy and simple. And as the old saying goes, neurons that fire together wire together. Our brain loves anything where we get a quick solution to a problem, whether that is shopping, or the wine, or the procrastinating, or the scrolling, or the Netflix, or the crisps, or whatever it might be that we use to escape uncomfortable feelings. And often it's because we just don't know how to manage and process big feelings or big thoughts. And so we look at a way to manage those in any which way is easy. And self-sabotage behaviors are learnt. They're often old ways that provided a solution that then become the problem. And our brain loves the familiar, so it's hard to escape self-sabotage. And 97% of the population have consistent self-sabotaging behaviors to a greater or lesser degree at some point in their lives. And I view self-sabotage as the gap between the life that we're living and our fullest capability. And so there's this lovely gap in between those two things that, with a deeper understanding of our behavior and tools by which we can shift out habits or habitual responses and deeper understanding of our thoughts, I can absolutely assure you that we are able to change those self-sabotaging loops and get on our own side. So I'm going to start by asking you a few questions, because I want you all to have healthy ways of thinking and behaving, and to start practicing those over and over again so we can switch out that old self-sabotaging behavior. So I'd love to ask you, first of all, about whether you're a self-saboteur. You know, are you often asking yourself why things haven't gone to plan again? Are you second guessing yourself, doubting yourself? Are you often not reaching your goals? Are you finding yourself doing the things that are exactly the opposite of what you wanted to do, and asking yourself, why on earth am I here again? Are you believing that you don't deserve more? Or are you behaving in ways that show yourself that you don't deserve more? Are you feeling really fed up of acting impulsively on emotion? And apologies that usually follow to yourself, then the repeated behavior comes back in, and you'd love to learn how to manage your emotions in real time, then today's session is going to be for you if those questions I've asked you appeal to you. Remember that self-sabotage doesn't always happen in all areas of our lives. It can happen in certain parts of our lives, and it's normally because of old triggers and old ways of coping that have stuck. So let's just explore some of the signs of self-sabotaging behavior. And I want you to write down or take notes on the areas that resonate with you. What are these, when I talk you through the different signs that you might be self-sabotaging? And by the way, if you are, it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. It's just a coping mechanism. And it's something we can work with to shift to get on your own side. So some of the signs that you personally might be self-sabotaging are perhaps that you're listening to your inner critic. Are you listening to that voice that you're not good enough? Nothing is ever going to work out. You're going to mess this up again. Is that resonating with you? Because the first step to change is consciously being aware. Or are you procrastinating? Now, procrastination comes from fear of failure. And of course, the irony when we procrastinate is that we often end up fulfilling our own biggest fear. And that's leaving things to the very last minute, or thinking that you perform best when you're cramming all the information in just before you go into a meeting. Or are you avoiding anything that runs the risk of pain? So are you finding yourself avoiding any situations that leave us open to experiencing something like that again? And where I think this comes up so often is in things like dating, right? Putting ourselves back out there for a relationship. And I know that after I got divorced, I felt very fearful of getting into a committed relationship again. Or are you using substances to numb the pain in the short term? They work brilliantly for about half an hour. They're not so good after that. So perhaps that's alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be food, anything that gives us that immediate relief becomes that problem. Are you trying to control everything? So that feeling of impermanence in our life, of change, of things never staying the same, we really struggle with that as human beings, but it's part of life. So is that something for you that you're self-sabotaging because you're desperate to control everything? Are you thinking you have to say yes? So are you not holding on to those boundaries? And you're too busy saying yes, so you're saying no to yourself. Are you trying to fix everyone? Are you everybody's caretaker? And it's actually often a distraction from facing our own challenges. Or are you struggling with your self-esteem, not thinking you're worthy of the good stuff? Now, if any of those have started to speak to you, if deep down you think that, yes, I am listening to my inner critic, or I'm procrastinating, or I'm not holding boundaries, or I'm not leaning into challenges, or I'm trying to control everything, or I'm just simply not saying no, we can become our greatest teacher with really fantastic awareness of how we think, being able to manage that and self-soothe in ways that are on our own side, and having a really great toolbox so that we can silence that inner saboteur. Because in between the life we lead at the moment, we have resistance. And on the other side of resistance is our unlived life. So this is what I view as our full potential. And the resistance is that biological desire for things to stay the same. And this is why we often spend our time thinking, I cannot believe I'm back here again. And I cannot believe I'm doing those same things again, even though I promised myself I would never go back to doing X or Y. And you see it all the time with people impulse shopping when they can't afford it. I wonder if that's something that resonates with you, or really wanting to get healthy, but still finding themselves in a cycle of eating things that for you don't feel good, or leaving things to the last minute. I wonder if any of those resonate. And I'm going to help you today to look at how you can start working with what's resonating for you so far. And if you're not self-sabotaging, fantastic. Wonderful. You can share and observe anything that's been working for you. So often, our feelings are something that we believe are facts. And our feelings come from our thoughts. And so often they are the reason why we end up using these coping mechanisms over and over again. And it's actually action that leads to positive feelings. And positive action is a brilliant way of dialing down our inner saboteur. But how do we get there? Well, nothing changes if nothing changes. So one of the biggest learnings that I've had is to gain a deep awareness of why I do the things I do, why I think the things I think, and why I feel the way I feel in certain situations. And part of that process for me has been really learning why or when I catastrophize. So when do you catastrophize? When do you make one fact and jump to a conclusion and believe that this one moment in time is going to create your future and your reality? I wonder for you, perhaps you've thought a friend was deeply upset with you because they haven't replied to a text, or because something's not working out in this moment, it means everything's not going to work out, or everything's about to go wrong. I wonder when you are stuck in that I should based thinking, creating all of these rules and expectations about how everything should go. And as a result, having a reaction to that, I guess if we think about the friend texting, getting really into that friend should have texted you back, rather than understanding they may simply have something else going on. And for me, part of my process of silencing my inner saboteur, and I'm not a perfect student, I haven't silenced it completely, is exploring, when do I get into should-based thinking? Why am I there? When am I getting into catastrophizing? Why am I there? Black and white thinking is just as powerful as an inner saboteur because it only allows for two possibilities, right? No in between. Perhaps someone's passed you in the office and they haven't said hello, and suddenly decide they are an absolutely outrageously rude person, rather than acknowledging they may simply have been thinking, or they might simply have been elsewhere, or maybe something's gone on for them that morning. Mind reading is another one, because simply thinking that we know the thoughts or intentions of others is a brilliant way to self-sabotage. So deciding perhaps that we didn't get the the promotion that we so deserved because our boss simply doesn't care about us is one example of black and white thinking. Whereas actually, maybe if we were welcoming in more feedback, we'd understand how and why and when we can get there. Perhaps you have been stuck in that feeling of discounting the positive, downplaying your good qualities, downplaying what your achievements are. Are you able to accept a compliment? Are you able to simply say thank you when somebody says something lovely to you? Or do you dismiss it? So let me just ask you, pop in the chat, are you good at accepting compliments? Have you found yourself in should-based thinking, in overgeneralizing, in catastrophizing? Okay, so the majority of us really struggle. And it's a really amazing. So one of my first tools for you today is when the next time somebody gives you a compliment or says something good to you about yourself or something you've done, just say thank you. And you'll notice you're able to receive it. And as a result, our subconscious starts to receive it. And it's a really powerful mindset alteration if we're able just simply to say thank you. And then the last area that I wanted to touch on that I've had to explore is this piece around personalization. So the thought process where we measure ourselves against other people. And what a nightmarish society we are in for perpetuating personalization, the compare and despair mentality when we go onto certain sorts of social media. So my second tip for you today is to unfollow or block or quieten anything that doesn't make you feel good about the lane that you are in. If it's not going to enrich your life and it's making you feel a certain way, stop following that person. Stop listening to what they have to say. Don't follow them anymore in any form of social media if it's not enhancing or enriching your life in some way. One of the alerts that I've learned, and I think could help you too, is noticing when you self-sabotage. So see, these are some of the ways that in the past I've self-sabotaged or been triggers for self-sabotage. Do any of these resonate with you? And it's always amazing if you're comfortable to share in the chat box what might resonate with you, because it helps us all to understand we're having a common human experience. You are not good or bad. You're simply coping with this thing called life. And so understanding where our triggers come from, those self-sabotaging behaviors, is incredibly empowering, because it means we can switch something else in at that moment. So for you, is it boredom? Is it fear? Things going well sounds like a crazy one, but if we've been taught or listened to voices a lot that were negative, then things going well can feel really scary because our brain's brilliant at protecting us, and we think, I'm going to limit this feeling because something bad might happen at any minute. Anger, incredibly powerful emotion, and very needed, because anger is about galvanizing us to action. But because we really don't understand how to use anger to our benefit, we so often want to squash it as a feeling because we think it's a bad feeling to have. Self-doubt, big one, right? And for me, with most of the coaching clients I've ever had, that feeling of self-doubt or fear-driven behavior is one of the biggest causes for self-sabotage. Because we self-sabotage because we're trying to escape something bad happening, or we're trying to find immediate gratification to cope with the bigger feelings. So it's resonating with all of you. And before I give you some more tools to work with, because obviously it's a huge subject, we're never going to be able to cover it all in an hour, and we're not going to solve it in an hour. But if we just get some conscious awareness and a few extra tools, we can start the process. So we're going to understand your PQ saboteurs. And I've got a couple of slides that I want to share with you about PQ. So essentially, this is our potential quotient. This is how we think and feel. And our potential quotient is something I want you to think about, is what is my potential quotient? What's the gap between where I'm living or how I'm living my life now and my potential? And these are 10 areas that diminish our potential quotient. Are there ways that you could be more aware of these that would help you to dial down that inner saboteur? Because these are all areas that fire it right up. So the judge, beating yourself up over mistakes. I think somebody I saw glanced in the chat had mentioned that one mistake they've been ruminating over. And you can hear what the judge sounds like. You're an idiot. Why on earth would you do that? Perfectionism. It's a huge one. We often, do you remember when you used to go into interviews and be told that saying you were a perfectionist was the best thing ever? But actually, it's often this has to be done my way or no way. Or it's terrible if it's not like this. It can be very judgmental. The people pleaser. Please like me is the people pleaser so that I am acceptable. One of the most liberating pieces of information that took a while to really understand that I was given was what other people think of you is none of your business. And it's quite a tough one to take on. And it doesn't mean that you get to do bad things or not be respectful, but it means as long as you're acting with integrity and good intention, as long as you take ownership when we don't get things right, actually what other people think of me or you isn't our business. Can really help dial down that people pleaser piece. The restless, and this is one that I struggle with so much, is definitely something I still am working with, is that constant busyness or new ideas and new excitement, which means that I so often don't have that time I would so love. Hypervigilant. That constant sense of, I could never do that, something might go wrong. So we pass up on so many of these amazing challenges and opportunities. I wonder for you, if you felt comfortable just sharing one of these potential quotient saboteurs that's coming up for you. The victim, no one cares. The controller, you really need to do what I'm saying you need to do in order that I feel okay. The avoider, I'll deal with it later. Or the hyper-rational, not allowing some of the understanding that we are mind, body, soul, that we are, we're unable to cut ourselves off at the head. So not welcoming in the emotional part of who we really are. I bet that one of these will resonate with every single one of you because you are human. And so this is part of the human experience. But on the other side of this, there is the opportunity to move through into a way of living where we are on our own side through our thinking and through our acting. If we choose to filter out the noise and get really uber clear on why we self-sabotage, when we self-sabotage, and how to get on our own side. Because if I say to you, don't think about pink elephants, what's happening for you right now? Are you thinking about pink elephants? Of course you are. Of course you are. So if I say to you, stop shopping every time you feel rubbish, but you've been shopping successfully every single time you felt rubbish for the last 10 years, are you likely to think more about shopping or less about shopping? You're likely to think more about shopping, right? So we don't want to focus on the things that we don't want anymore. I want you to focus on the things and the way of living that you want. One of the most powerful ways to start to rewire the brain is visualization. And there is a great way of doing this that works with incredible effect. And that is to invite your future self to the conversation. Let's use the shopping analogy. So I am angry and frustrated. I always shop when I'm angry and frustrated, and for about half an hour, I feel better. But it's stopping me from saving, it's damaging my self-esteem, I feel really anxious after I've done it, and my self-esteem takes a real battering because I just don't feel like I can ever stop shopping when I feel like that. Invite your future self for a talk, for a conversation, and ask them, that future version of you, the older, wiser, more knowing you, what their advice would be. Ask them how to become that person. And ask them for guidance. Now, I know this sounds a bit woo-woo, but actually, if you look at science, it's incredibly impactful. It's a brilliant way to change our thinking and change our action that comes as a result of that thinking. So visualize that person, that future version of you, the very best version of you that's older, wiser, and more knowing, and ask them for advice in that minute. And then look for ways that you can work towards becoming that future version of you that you know is happy, healthy, thriving. We've talked a lot about the power of the pause in many of the webinars that I deliver. But we call it the power of the pause because it is incredible. When you think about the events that are producing the big feelings, that are driving your self-sabotage, what are they? What for you are the events that so often lead to the thoughts that produce the feelings which drive the actions? If we think about those shopping ones, perhaps it's a relationship when they've had an argument and then they're feeling scared that this person's going to leave, that they might be on their own, which makes somebody feel lonely and anxious and rejected, and that drives then the action to the shopping. And so it goes on. But if we understand the event itself and the thoughts that often happen as a result, we can use the power of the pause. And it's called de-emphasizing. So often when we have those thoughts, I'm always going to be alone, for example, they feel huge, too big to cope with. But if we can work on the practice of de-emphasizing, we can calm ourselves down, we can wait to act until those facts are more clear, we can become an objective observer. And there's a brilliant way of doing this, and you may have heard about it, but it's called labeling. And it's to say to yourself, after the power of the pause, I'm having the thought that I will always be alone. Or I notice that I'm thinking I will always be alone. And when you notice a thought and you say to yourself, I am noticing I'm having the thought that, you add a layer of separation between yourself and the thought. And that dials down the chance of having huge feelings and self-sabotaging. If we're able to say, I'm noticing that I'm having that thought. I wonder what happened just before I had that thought and what I can do to be on my own side in this moment. And if we can learn our ABCs, we can start to change them. And we can start to unravel those self-sabotaging behaviors that have often been going on and on and on for many years. And so you need to journal out every time you're having one of those moments where perhaps you've self-sabotaged or you want to. If you're able to write it down, you'll start to learn what events are likely to cause the behaviors or the actions that are no longer on your side. And if you're able to note then what the consequences of those actions are, what happens is you can start to create that ability to have the power of the pause, because you deeply understand what's likely to cause you to self-sabotage, what behaviors are likely to result, and the consequences that result from that. There's an amazing theorist on self-sabotage called Dr. Pennington, and she talks a lot about goal setting. Now, we often set ourselves up for self-sabotage because we set these huge goals, these big plans. But actually, if we can create an understanding of the distance between where we are at and where we'd like to be, it can help show us a path to get there if we really analyze it. And it's about small goals. Now, we get dopamine when we plan and when we set goals. So goal setting is amazing for giving us one of those happy hormones. But what doesn't give us a happy hormone is when we set ourselves up with these huge tasks and these massive goals, because because of how we are set up and wired as humans, we're unlikely to be able to get there without them being chunked right down. And that's why having 3 intentions for your day and 3 non-negotiables for your week is a great way to start diminishing that gap between where you are and where you would like to be. One of the things that I was encouraged to do was to have a life audit and to try and regularly check in with this, with journaling, observing, and reflecting. And when we reflect, we are able to create this incredible conscious awareness, which again separates us from our thoughts not being facts and being able to be an observer. So when we can get to the point that I notice I'm having this thought, it's because of this awareness piece. And if you're able to find 5 minutes, 10 minutes during a week or a day, if you're super disciplined, you can start asking yourself, when have I not felt great about myself today? What was going on before that? Or what was I doing? Or who was I listening to? Or what was I looking at on Instagram? What am I believing about myself? What are those internalized beliefs that aren't helping me? One of mine used to be, I will always be terrible with money. And I said it to myself over and over, and it became a belief, because a belief is just a thought we think over and over again. Fear of the unknowns. When have I felt fearful, and what was it about? And then the last one, what was I trying to control? Because when we understand how we think and feel and act because of a life audit, we get this incredible ability to create change. It's like rocket fuel for change. And we are observing. We're not shoulding or it ought to be on ourselves. We are simply observing. A trick for all of you is to try and get really clear on what you value most. and use those values, perhaps one value that you focus on a week, to get super clear on how to make decisions that matter most to you. It basically creates an intentional way of living. But often when I speak to, perhaps if I'm going into organizations to train, or maybe I'm coaching, and certainly in my own business journey, it's been really clear for me that understanding what our values are and using them as a lens to make decisions is a fantastic way to get on our own side. Because then we can start to think about, is this taking me towards or away from my goals? If we're going to work on that piece around de-emphasizing, and if we're going to work on that ability to create the gaps between our thoughts and our feelings and our actions, there's a brilliant tool that I absolutely love, which is to set aside worry time. Now, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but if you set yourself 15 minutes a day of worrying time, you can worry the hell out of that 15 minutes, and you write down all of your fears and your worries and your concerns. And if you have 15 minutes to worry, what happens is you are going to completely change the way your brain works the rest of the day. It is amazing what it does, because your brain knows after a while of doing this, it's got space and time to worry later. And it's just the same for gratitude. An attitude of gratitude, we all know, but that sense of optimism is one of the foundations of happiness. Hope and optimism is one of the most powerful ways to live a happier, more fulfilled life, and a life where we are less likely to self-sabotage. And so those two aspects of allocating time for both the gratitude and fear is an amazingly powerful way to free up space in our brain to focus on moving towards how we truly know living our life will bring us fulfillment, success, calm, being centered. Because that self-regulation piece is one of the most powerful ways to dial down our inner saboteur, knowing how to manage and work with big emotions. Part of that is being able to ask ourselves great questions. It's also about knowing that instead of eating 25 packets of crisps to feel better because I feel angry, or doing the shopping, I'm going to take a 10-minute walk. Or I know that listening to music for 5 minutes will help me in this moment. Or I know that picking up the phone to a certain person is going to help. Or journaling is powerful for me in those moments. So finding a way to change the ritual with something that's on our own side is going to really help. But to do that, we need to be super aware, because of course, life is going to life regardless. Right, life is up, down, full of curveballs, full of changes. My own life has been full of curveballs and the unexpected, and it continues to be, because that's just part of the rich tapestry of life. So it doesn't suddenly get so easy if you get on your own side. You're not going to stop having needs or emotions or feelings or stuff happen, but you'll know how to work on in your inner world. So you'll be able to stop reacting impulsively or buying into that negative messaging and self-talk, and you'll be able to start to interpret the world from a much more grounded, positive place where we can get on our own side. And it's trying to enjoy the little things. I'm going to really try and avoid sharing with you all of those kind of Instagram quick fix ways of managing your inner world, but noticing intentionally all the, the glimmers and the glitter in our life, from from the gratitude of being able to have an amazing cup of coffee in the morning, or a room to do this for you, just having that intentionality around noticing really, again, helps to dial down the chances of your inner saboteur taking over. Because for most of us, It's not the Ferraris or the houses or the holidays that bring us long-lasting happiness. It's connection, it's inner peace, it's fulfilling our potential, about knowing what matters to us most and following those breadcrumbs. I wanted just to leave you today with the last few ways that you can really help to dial down your inner saboteur. And this is all about cognitive diffusion. So looking at thoughts, observing, getting curious, letting thoughts come and go. Some of the ways that you're going to be able to leave today's session and create change is if you can start to act counter to your feelings. So if you have always shopped when you're angry, is bringing in something else that you know when you feel that anger that you can do instead that's on your own side. Practicing sitting with uncomfortable feelings, failure, rejection, disappointment, things not going our way, and learning from them and using them as information rather than something negative about ourselves is so powerful. The compliment thing that we spoke about right at the beginning, so this positive self-actualization, we call it. So how we see ourselves in the world, accepting compliments, noticing with intention how we do positive things in the world, our work, our relationships, how we contribute in any possible way to other people's happiness, and also practicing acceptance. And what this means is that you are able to accept reality. Because if we argue with reality, Katie Byron tells us that we lose 100% of the time. So if things are tough, they're tough. If things are challenging, they're challenging. If we've been wronged, we've been wronged. But then using that to create a platform for action. Okay, things are challenging. What's in my circle of control that I can take action over? Self-compassion and self-regulation, incredible ways to dial down your inner saboteur. And self-compassion means accepting that we are human, we get things wrong, we'll get things right, we'll say the wrong thing, we'll say the right thing. Understanding that we're not going to be successful at everything we touch, that everything's not going to go our way all of the time. And being compassionate to ourselves when we're going through that. And of course, you know that mindfulness will help you with that, whether that is meditation or a walk or journaling, any of those practices. And for me, a podcast I absolutely love is by Tara Brach, and she has the most incredible meditations. And for me, they work brilliantly well when I need to self-regulate, or I need to have a bit of a dose of self-compassion, or I need to accept reality and work with it rather than fighting against it. But you are capable of having an inner cheerleader over an inner saboteur. You are more than capable of change, but it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take daily work to get there. But my goodness me, what a life there is to lead on the other side. And imagine closing that gap bit by bit between where you are and your unlimited potential, and how that would feel. So I'm going to close today's webinar there. You are so welcome to ask me any questions if you have any. And I just want to know, because it's always really tough giving a webinar when I can't see you. What are you taking away from today? Is there one thing that is calling you to action, or that you've become more aware of, or that you know you can do as a result of today's webinar? What's resonated with you? What's been useful? I'd love to know what's been helpful for you. What have you found? What have you found supportive? Or what's called you to action, of course? What does that look like for you? I'm really pleased that it was uplifting and useful. Yeah. Beliefs are just recurring thoughts. So true. Absolutely, you are not alone. I'm glad it was thought-provoking. Yeah, the worry time is very good, very powerful indeed. I'm so grateful that you shared your lunch breaks with me if you're in the UK, or part of your day if you're not in the UK. And just remember that elasticity around compassion. It's not going to be linear. Excellent. I'm glad it's been useful. Thank you for being here with me. We'll share with you how you can work with us, of course, on the training or recruitment side. We'd love to spend some more time with you. And thank you so much indeed for being here today. I know how precious everyone's time is. Thank you, everyone. Take care and have a wonderful weekend when it arrives for you all. Thank you very much indeed. Take care, everyone. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend. Look after yourselves.